Hello y'all on YouTube, this is Rob with Rob's Nerdy Knives. Today we are reviewing a knife that came in through the pass around. This is a review impressions. This is not my own knife, it's a knife that's been passed around. And since it's a pass around knife, I don't own it, I'm not going to hard use it. I'm just going to get a feel for it and do an impressions, just straight up so you understand what the purpose of this review and why it's being done this way. And I'm not typically a guy that does hard use reviews on them. So if that's what you're looking for, I do apologize. But I do give you a realistic perspective of my impressions of how I like knives. I'm kind of nerdy. I love knives. I love details. I love design. I love materials and things like that. And so this knife was kind of cool to check out. This is called a Highwater Knives. It's the Estuary flipper. I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Estuary, I think that's how you pronounce it. It is a modified tanto. First of all, this is a black aluminum, hard anodized, hard-coated scale. This is a steel clip, so you can see that steel clip right here, right? It's like a deep pocket carry clip. It is reversible, so left and right hand carry. It is a button lock, and it's a flipper. And it's got a kind of unique modified tanto blade here with a step milled kind of, if you will, milling pattern on here, which is very smooth and very usable. It's not harsh or anything like that. And if you notice this edge, this was hand ground or hand polished by the owner, which is very pretty, beautiful polished edge, which is really kind of crazy, but nice. This is a CPM-154 steel. So this is the crucible metal powdered metallurgy made in the USA. This is a USA made knife. So just understand that as a USA made knife, you know, it's not going to be like, you know, competitive to the super inexpensive Chinese knives. So this will definitely take a little more work. It's machined here in the USA and is done with the owner. And so this is really a kind of a cool little knife. Nice and centered. We talked about the steel clip, reversible, beautifully rounded on the scale, which I like. Nice texture on there, which kind of goes with the Estuary. I believe that means like water reserve or something like that. I don't know. You guys can tell me what it is because I know some of you guys know more about that. But I think the name is meant to, the design of the knife is meant to flow with the name, right? Because you also see the step mill pattern, which is kind of like ripples, and you got ripples on the scale. So I get the theme. It's kind of cool. Even that is like a little wave there. So pretty cool, right? It is a button lock, polished button lock at that, which is nice and recessed. So it's out of the way. You really have to press it in to release it. But man, that locks up solidly. It's in there. No blade play. Locks in really well. There's no I want to say detent lash, but we call it maybe button lock lash. There's no button lock lash, so that's cool. Has two standoffs in the back, which is beautifully polished nicely. It's got great blade to handle ratio, really utilizes that well. Pretty large size knife. We'll do the measurements here in just a second, but I wanted to talk about the materials. It is caged bearings, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The action is just fantastic. Now, being that it's recessed, you gotta make sure you get your finger in there to depress it, to release it, which, you know, for some people are gonna be like, oh, that's a little annoying. No, actually, I mean, with a button lock, you want it not to be easy to get to, right? You don't want to accidentally depress it. You know, you can be able to hold it left and right handed. You can do a little trigger hold up here. I wouldn't recommend it. You're too close to sharpening tool, and boy, this is sharp. You're gonna get it sharp if you buy one of these. Just be careful, right? Beautiful, thick, nice edge. The reverse tanto is great. It's got a nice second point. It's not really a point, it's more of a round curve, but we'll call it a modified tanto, right? I get it. Nice and rounded on the top. There's no sharpness up there. I like that. Everything, there's a lot of details on here that are just really outstanding, and I think is worth noting, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So, manufacturer is Highwater Knives. It is called Estuary, and the designer, do I know the guy's name? I don't know if I have it. I know you can go to their website and they will talk about it. I'm looking and I'm trying to find it. I don't have it. I'm sorry. But I'm sure some people would know that as well. To me, I love the fact that the owner is the designer. Okay, so you know, this is not a knife normally in my aesthetic, so it's not one of these things that I'm going to know everything about. And this is the only knife I've ever experienced for them, and until I experience more, I'm going to be a little ignorant about that. So I'll be upfront and just kind of share that with you. But I will have a link to this and the knife. I think Blade Ops sells it, and you know, I have a Blade Ops affiliate, so feel free to use that if you're interested in this knife. But I believe you can get it from Highwater Knives as well. So really, really cool little knife here, I think. All right, so we talked about the materials, the scales. We talked about that. There's no milling because it is aluminum, so you know, there's not really a need. It's pretty light as well as for concern. The button lock is really outstanding. That button lock just really engages the blade really nicely in there, so I'm really pleased with that. It opens and closes very well. Now there's no jimping on here. I will tell you a few times I have missed, and when I was flicking it, it can miss and then it can hurt a little bit, right? So if I was to ask for one little thing, maybe put a little jimping on here, maybe get rid of that little pokey part right there, because anytime you have a curve, it seems nice to have a curve. It always looks like, oh, it's very aesthetic, it's beautiful and all, but once you get that little poker point right there and you're flipping all the time, that digs in. My Herman Sting had the same issue. That digs in. It just gets uncomfortable if you're a fidget guy, and I do. I like to fidget with my knives, and when I fidget with this knife, that digs in, and so I'm not a fan of that. I wish that was maybe a little more rounded, had some jimping going around it. Then you could probably do the push button a little better. I can do it. I can't do it long because that digs in, it gets uncomfortable, right? If you do the light switch, it works pretty well, but just make sure, like I just slipped there. You see that? Your fingers can really slip off of that. So, you know, that's the one qualm that I have there with that. It is a single method of deployment. It's a flipper, but you know, of course you can do the button lock. So I mean, technically it's two. You know, a lot of people always think that's just a closing, but you could use it for the opening as well. You can use let gravity do it as well. Technically, I guess that would be considered a gravity knife in some regards. Yeah, so there you go. Let's talk about what else. The blade, we talked about the blade, there's no finishing. It looks like it's a, is this, I think it's ground as well. I want to say it looks like it was stone washed, but it's not. It looks more like that's part of the polish, right? But I love that. Made in the USA, very unique design. So if you like something unique, this is definitely it. It's a nice flat grinding, but this step mill, and let's zoom in just a little bit so you can see this. The step mill is really cool. It's very smooth. It's not rough or anything. You can see that edge is ridiculously sharp. Really done well on both sides. Very even. I love that. That's really some quality there. It's got a nice little sharpening tool way down there, and you're not going to get close to that. You can put your finger up here. You can work it back here as you want, both ways. It does give you a nice lockup position for that, so here and here. That, I think, is really cool. All right, so let's do some measurements real quick. I've got my ruler over there, but let me get the scale out. I got something on my scale there. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and get a measurement of this. So it lists at 4 ounces, and look at, lo and behold, it's exactly 4 ounces. So whatever they listed as for sale for 4 ounces, that's absolutely correct. So it's a 4-ounce knife, which is really cool, right? All right, so let's look at the length of this knife. Get a little bit of measurements here. So overall, the knife length is, I'm going to say 8 and maybe 1/3 of an inch, 8 and 1/3 of an inch. The overall handle length is about 4 1/4. So, you know, 4 1/4 gives you large handles to extra large to double extra large hands. I think it's plenty of room on this. Really nice. The roundedness is really comfortable. This doesn't dig anywhere. There's no hot spots. There's a little hole there. I'm not really sure what the point of that is. I'm sure there's a reason for it. There's no lanyard hole per se, but I guess one of these could be used as a lanyard loop if you wanted to. I mean, that's certainly a nice thing about a standoff. All right, so let's look at the blade length. The overall blade length from tip, we're looking to, back here, it's about 3.5 inches. If we're looking from the overall cutting length, we're looking about 3, I want to say it's a little over 3.5. So maybe 3 5/8, maybe 3 9/16. I don't know, somewhere around there. So that's the overall cutting length of the blade. So let's go ahead and do the overall measure of the blade stock thickness, all right? All right, so blade stock thickness we're dealing with here is 124 thousandths of an inch, so 0.124 inches, about relatively normal blade stock thickness that you would expect. All right, the cost of this knife is around $299. It's listed as $299. You know, cost of knives could go up and down. That's right on that edge of the very top of your regular knives for me and the very bottom of your high-end knife. So, you know, one way or the other with tax, you can consider high-end. With you get 0 tax, I guess. It's a regular knife. It's your call. Either way, I think what you get for as far as USA-made materials, this is outstanding. Really, really outstanding. And being that's made by one guy in a shop and everything, I think that's just phenomenal, okay? You know, this is up there with that, it's kind of like a unique ProTech. That's the way I look at it. It's very kind of a unique, small business ProTech version. I like it. I like it a lot. But it's like if ProTech didn't do automatics, they just did manuals like the Malibu and the Mordax, you know? And the new TR3 coming out, by the way. It's going to be manuals too. I think that's kind of the thing. So definitely, my personal thing is, you know, with cost and everything, it's probably going to be in the low high-end range. That's where I would probably classify it, because it feels like a kind of a nicer knife, you know, it really does. Is this EDC use? Absolutely. Is it hard use? You know my thing. I think all button locks are never really truly hard use knives. Button locks, just by definition, the way a plunge lock has a little kind of like a channel that it fits in. The plunge lock is pushed down by a spring, and any sort of vibration, it can move up, and that plunge, by, you know, if there's any push on it, it'll kind of slide up, and then eventually it could fail, right? So that's why vibration, when people do the whack test and all sorts of stuff, you know, sometimes they fail on plunge locks. Plunge locks, I don't think are ever really truly meant for really super hard use. That's just my personal opinion about them. But I think this is a really solid plunge lock. It's really one of the nicer, more stronger ones out there, or stronger ones out there, not more stronger, sorry, bad English. But as far as that, I feel pretty confident in it. So I say hard use as far as a button lock is concerned. Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't go cutting logs or anything like that with it. Absolutely not. It is CPM-154 steel, the crucible metal, so that's really nice. That's a nice step up in steel. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with that and enjoy that kind of steel. That does sharpen pretty well, does retain an edge pretty well, has, you know, pretty corrosion resistance. Not absolutely stainless, but pretty darn close. So nice as far as that. Is it a collection piece? Absolutely, this is a collection piece. This is so unique. It's made in USA. It's a, you know, made by one man shop there, I believe, one man, or at least one business, right? The owner does the polishing on the blades. I don't know if he does everything else, but it's a shop. It's a USA shop, and so in that regard, to me, that definitely puts it into like it could be a collection piece. Absolutely. All right, so the overall design, I like it. I like it. It's not in my aesthetic. This is not in my wheelhouse, to be quite honest. It's not. It's a weird kind of a shaped blade. You know, this is almost Norseman Grismo kind of wide and kind of weird shaped. The handle has kind of got that weird kind of a shape, and I get it. It's that estuary kind of water sort of look, a flow of waves, and cool. Definitely cool. Not my cup of tea. But I appreciate it. I like it. I really do. Had the shapes been a little bit different, if he comes out with a different model and it's just a little different, I think I could love this thing. I really do. It's just so far out there. It's just, you know, but does it mean I can't appreciate it? Does it mean I can't recommend it? No, absolutely not. I think if this shape speaks to you, this is absolutely going to be a knife you're going to love. I would go for it. I feel with the little I've handled it, what I know about it, and everything I've experienced in this knife, this is a solid knife. I mean, you should be as happy with this as a Mordax, right? And, you know, it's about the same price. Maybe, you know, $30 more than the Mordax right now. I mean, it's not bad for what you're getting here. I mean, it's just really great quality. It's such a different design. So if you're not into the Mordax and that's too simple, plain Jane, or too traditional, there you go. Estuary Highwater. Check it out. So that, I think, is great. The opening is fantastic. Like I said, the one thing, next version, if he ever does an update, put a little jimping. Get rid of that little loop up. You see how it hooks up right there? You see that? It's just, I'm not a fan of that. For long-term fidgeting, that starts to dig into the finger, because I can't always get my finger perfectly placed like that. I don't have really long, I have meaty, chunky little fingers, right? And they're not always long. And so for me to get that all the time, and then when I'm doing that, I'm hitting my knuckle up there. That's not comfortable, right? So to me, it'd be nice if I could do that without that digging it. That's my one thing, but otherwise it opens like a dream. The button lock works flawlessly. It's just phenomenal. The opening and closing is beautiful. The cage bearings, it's beautifully dead nut centered. I love how the blade fits in there so nicely. That's wonderful. All right, so fidget factor. It does the flipping really nicely. The closing is outstanding. The button lock is outstanding. If I would just, you know, that's the one thing, that long-term flipping is with that, that's what's going to take a point off. So I would say I want to give this a 5. Almost a 6, but this is going to be a 4. And it's like a 4.25. And really, that's what took it off from a 5, almost to a 6, right? That right there. So it loses a little of its fidget factor ability, because that, to me, makes it a little bit, ooh, almost cut myself there. It's a sharp blade, be careful. It makes it much less fidgety, because it's not quite as comfortable. So to me, that takes off a little bit. So as far as the fidgety goodness, as far as you have, all right, so, you know, do I take points off as well for the fidgety goodness? I do, because that kind of limits the fidget factor, because you can't really do the push button. All you can do is really, the light switch, right? And if you had it a little better, you could do the push button. And what I'm doing here, it looks like a push button, but I'm really modified 45-degree angle, and I'm really doing a light switch with a sort of push button as I come over it. It's not most comfortable because that means I'm digging that little round corner in. So the fidgety goodness there, I'm going to give this a 90, maybe an 85. I'll give it a 90. I'll give it a 90. It's a good solid 90. And if some of you guys who have thin little round calloused fingers, you're not going to notice this. It's going to be perfectly fine for you guys. If you've got really long fingers and you can get up there a little higher, you're not going to notice. You might love this. It might not even, you might even be like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Right? For the rest of you guys who have stubby, smaller hands, you know, or stubby fingers or meaty fingers, you'll notice this. If you're like to fidget your knives a lot and that button is really something you enjoy, after a while it will become apparent. And I can tell you, having had it and fidgeting with it, it has. And so that's what takes away from it. So I'm going to give it a 90, but still pretty darn good. All right, so overall thoughts. I mean, this is a well-made USA blade. It really is. I like what Highwater Knives is doing. It's fantastic. Beautifully rounded, chamfered, rounded, well, it's not even chamfered, it's rounded corners on the scales, which is done outstanding. Inside, there's no sharp. Even a little cutaway here for the, oops, I hit the table, for the fidgety. And you can see that. That's a sharp blade. I'm going to have to fix the table a little bit there, right? It does it really, really, really well. I think it's just fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful edge, beautiful everything. I love it. I love it. I mean, the button lock works like a dream. It really does. CPM-154 blade steel is fantastic. The edge is great. It's nice and almost a full flat grind. Even with this, I call this like a step milled kind of grind, a gradient kind of a milling. I don't know what, I've heard different terms, right? I call it step milled, right? I think it's beautiful and it's nicely polished and it looks like it's like rough and coarse, but it's very smooth and it's very usable. Now, if you're trying to cut through something that very, very finely, you don't want any resistance, yeah, it's gonna have a little more resistance, but this is more, you know, a very functional use, but it also gives it a nice aesthetic, right? And I like that. I think that's the goal here. And it matches the aesthetic of the line. So yeah, my overall thoughts are, I'm gonna recommend this knife, absolutely. It's really nice. I mean, even with some of the things that I wish were a little different, I mean, if they fix those things, I can guarantee you that this knife would be in my collection. Absolutely be in my collection. I would be seeking after one of these and getting one of these. Heck, it would even be a competitor to the Mordax, quite frankly. But right now, the Mordax still wins for me. And so I'm happy with that. This just, it's a very unique shape. And, you know, and that's the thing. That's going to really appeal to some of you guys. And you're going to dig it because of that. I say go for it. Go for it. So there you go. That's my thoughts, my impressions on this knife. It's not a hard use knife review, so you know, take it for that. Don't expect that from me, at least especially with a lone knife. So I will say that much. All right. Hey, if you found this content fun, interesting, or worthwhile, would you please consider hitting the like button down below? And if you've already hit that like button, would you please consider hitting the subscribing? Subscribing and liking the videos for the channel really helps out, especially to all you guys out there who watch the videos, who like, who subscribe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. And if you are one of the members too who supports the channel, I want to say a big thank you and a big shout out to you guys. I appreciate you. I just want to let you know, if you're interested in being a channel member, there's a link down in the description. Would love to have you. No pressure, but would love to have you. You're welcome and greatly appreciated. I can tell you that since the channel started, the members have been a huge part of me being able to do the giveaways, to cover the costs, or at least not part of the costs of shipping these knives. Not quite there where it's self-sustaining, but you know, it's a huge help. And I am really appreciative. It allows me to check some of these cool knives out. Hopefully that gives you a little insight to knives that maybe you'd like to know about before you try. And that's what I'm hoping I'm doing. I'm giving you that insight. If you're on the fence, I'm going to give you my perspective. And if there's things you disagree with, you know, if I like it, you're not going to like it. And if there's things that you like that I don't like, you know, if I don't like it, you're going to like it. So, you know, take it with that. Use it leverage my experience for yourself, right? And that's what I hope this is. And I want to say to my members who support all of that, thank you. And to those people who are on the edge thinking about being members, I'd love to have you. 3 tiers. And just so you know, once a month giveaway for the members. We're coming up. This video was recorded in February and it'll probably be released in February. So there will be a February giveaway and a big 4K giveaway. And I'm sure this video might be out well after that. But anyways, there will be a big 4K giveaway too. So, you know, things we celebrate. Because you guys, you're awesome. You make this channel grow. And I want to say thank you to all of you guys. I appreciate it. And if you haven't already, hit that notification button down below as well so you can be notified of future content. And finally, go check me out over on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Again, that's on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Thanks so much for watching today. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.